Where does your favorite NFL team rank after the 2025 NFL Draft? Welcome, football fans, to another BLV NFL Rankings video. In this video, I rank every NFL team from the worst to the best, an update after the draft. And as always, these rankings are uncut, no script, raw. These are my brutal, honest thoughts about all 32 NFL teams. If that sounds good to you, Gronk, spike the like button, don't be a jabroni, and subscribe. Let's get started with the worst team in the NFL, in my opinion. No one else's but my own. So let me know in the comments if you disagree. At number 32, the New Orleans Saints. That's right. If I had to pick one team right now that was going to pick number one in the 2026 NFL Draft, it would be the Saints. Why? I don't know who's starting at quarterback, first of all. Is it Derek Carr? I don't know. Is it Tyler Shuck? Maybe. I don't know. Obviously, Ryan Ramczyk doesn't know because he hung it up. He retired. Alvin Kamara's old. Same as Cameron Jordan. Same as Tyrann Mathieu. Same as Demario Davis. That's a lot of good players getting old. Olave's got some issues upstairs. I mean, this team has a new coaching staff, and I feel they need a season to reset, to recalibrate, get another top draft pick to rejuvenate this franchise. This might be the necessary bad season that New Orleans needs, because they don't have a good offense. They don't have a good defense. I don't know how this team calibrates their game plans and actually wins games this year, especially with a young, unproven Kellen Moore as their leader and head coach. So if it's no Derek Carr, this team will struggle. The Saints will struggle. So at number 32, I have the Saints. At number 31, the New York Jets. I think the Jets are quite easily the worst team in the AFC. I guess there's one more team that we'll discuss, but the Jets to me feel like the easy projection for the worst team in the AFC in 2025. First of all, they have the worst starting quarterback in the conference. This is a conference that has a lot of really talented, young and old quarterbacks. They have an unproven head coach who's a defensive-minded guy, which is never really ideal in this NFL. You have to be absolutely superb on that side of the ball, and I'm not quite sure Aaron Glenn has ever proven to be that, and I'm not sure he'll ever prove to be that. The offensive line is promising, but it is kind of young, especially at the tackle positions. I like Breece Hall, and I love Garrett Wilson, but there's a lot left to be desired when it comes to wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3. We'll see what Mason Taylor can become as a tight end. But I don't love the weaponry surrounding Justin Fields. And Justin Fields is not a quarterback that's going to put the team on his back and just carry an offense, right? This is a guy that struggles to complete passes, struggles to read the field, struggles to win games. I don't think he'll be doing very much of that in 2025. And you look at the defense, yeah, Sauce Gardner could have a huge bounce back. He was actually not as bad as people thought last year. They just like to rip him apart. Now he's got a new girlfriend, so what do you know? Then you look at the defensive front. Quinnen Williams is still a stud, and they do get back Jermaine Johnson, and Will McDonald is very good, and I like the linebackers, Quincy Williams leading the way. The safeties are pretty rough, and they did lose DJ Reed. I just don't really think this offense is going to be moving the ball and scoring enough points consistently for them to win games. And I just don't really see how the defense dominates to a level for them to really win more than like 5 games. Like, I don't see how the Jets are anything but poor in 2025. So that's why they're at number 31. At number 30, I have the Tennessee Titans. I don't think the Titans are going to be terrific by any stretch, but I do think that Cam Ward raises their floor and raises their ceiling. But my problem with the Titans is not Cam Ward, and this is where Titans fans have been confused by my comments about the team in recent videos. I believe in Cam Ward, short and long term. But Cam Ward is not being put in a situation for him to go out there in year 1 and win this division. Like, yeah, he's got Calvin Ridley and Tony Pollard, but he doesn't really have a lot to work with. I mean, Tyler Lockett is older than dirt, guys. Treylon Burks has proven to be nothing but bad in the NFL. Okonkwo can't actually run a real route. He's a screen guy. The O-line is a work in progress. I understand they made improvements there, and there are pieces to like, but I just don't see how Cam Ward has enough weaponry to win this division or to be dangerous offensively. It's going to be up, it's going to be down, it's going to be all over the place. I wouldn't be shocked if he was productive, and if you watched him and in like a Drake May last year type vibe, minus the terrible offensive line, you were like, this guy's actually got a lot of talent, he just doesn't have a lot of help. And then defensively, I don't see where the pass rush is coming from. I don't really love their linebackers. I think their safeties are So I look at the Titans and I just don't really see a dominant side of the football. I don't see a lot of upper echelon stud playmakers on either side of the football. And I don't love their coaching staff. So, I mean, from a roster perspective, they might be the worst in the league. I'm giving them a bit of a boost because their defense is formidable. I feel like they don't really have a true weakness, and Cam Ward can maybe uplift them to be a little bit more consistent. But this was the worst team in the league for a reason last year. So at number 30, I have the Titans. At number 29, the Cleveland Browns. The Browns are a tough team to rank at 29 because I could easily see how this season could be successful for them. They do have a pretty strong roster, but they don't have a great quarterback. So let's say they stumbled into a quarterback this season. Whether it be an old man Joe Flacco on his last legs, Shedeur Sanders, or my guy Dylan Gabriel, they have plenty of options, really besides Kenny Pickett, that I feel are high potential options. I think if they're playing Kenny Pickett, it's for the floor. It's for stabilizing the team. Otherwise, Flacco brings more ceiling. The rookies bring a higher ceiling. The offensive line is solid. It's a little older and it's aging. I'm concerned about the tackle position specifically for them if they have injuries, because we've seen DeJuan Jones and also Jack Conklin, get injured pretty consistently. But Bitonio, Teller inside with Pochich, that's always been a really awesome trio. They did add some juice to running back with Judkins and Sampson, and we'll see how they're able to run the ball with Stefanski this year calling plays. David Njoku, Jerry Jeudy. But I don't really love a lot of their secondary playmakers. They don't really have a true alpha X wide receiver. Cedric Tillman is fine. He's got some talent, but he's not like CeeDee Lamb or Justin Jefferson or something like that. So you're really counting on Jerry Jeudy to have another 100 catch type of season here. So I think the offense is going to be one of the worst in the league, just because I feel like between the offensive line getting older and potentially struggling through injuries, I think the quarterback position is going to be up, down, and all around in a roller coaster. And then there's going to be put a lot of pressure on that Browns defense again, right, to really perform and thrive. And while they do have a lot of talent, specifically Myles Garrett, complemented by Mason Graham now up front, I think their D-line is very, very solid, and they've got a trio of corners that I love. Denzel Ward leading the way. I just don't see how this defense, like the previous years, is really able to just dominate and just carry this team if the quarterback position is so inconsistent. So that's why I have the Browns at number 29. At number 28, the New York Giants. I think the Giants have a little bit more offense than the Browns, but a little bit less defense. And I see them kind of similarly. The Giants also have an extremely difficult schedule, which doesn't exactly help them in allowing me to have confidence in ranking them very high. Although I don't really try to influence myself through schedule because I'm just ranking the teams for their strength. But the Giants, they have Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston truly as options this year. I feel like Jackson Dart, they're going to want to sit for as long as possible until the season gets derailed. The offensive line is the concerning aspect because I don't think that Russell Wilson does well without a talented offensive line because of the amount of time he likes to hold onto the ball. He also doesn't really process the middle of the field throws or the quick concepts very well. He's very limited in that regard, especially at this point in his career where a lot of his backyard ability has been stripped away from him due to age and inability to just be agile and extend. But he does have Malik Neighbors. He does have Darius Slayton. He does have Wan'Dale Robinson, Tyrone Tracy, Cam Skattebo, Devin Singletary. They've got plenty of options. Theo Johnson. So I feel like they have enough weaponry, probably the best set of weapons that Brian Daboll's ever had for this Giants team. And then I feel like the quarterback is at least going to be a little bit higher floor with Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston. And who knows, you can throw Jameis out there for the ceiling, right? He could throw 300, he could put up 3 tutties, he could also throw 4 picks, right? But Russell Wilson, I just see a lot of struggles with sacks, holding the ball, a lot of 3 and outs. I think it's going to be a very frustrating offense for the Giants fans to watch early in the season. Defensively, I could see them being pretty dominant up front when it comes to Brian Burns and Abdul Carter with Dexter Lawrence. They drafted another kid inside, and then you also have, of course, Kayvon Thibodeau. So that front 7 is going to be nasty, in my opinion. The secondary is very much improved with Adebo and Holland and some of the younger guys from year 1 taking steps into year 2, like Nubin at safety, right? So I think that they have actually all around a really solid defense that could be a top 10 unit. I just think there's going to be a lot of frustrating games, drives, and quarters with this Giants offense where they're just very, very, very slow and tough to watch. So that's why I have them at number 28. I do hope the Giants prove me wrong, though, because I'd like to see this team be successful. At number 27, the Indianapolis Colts. The Colts, to me, they probably should be ranked higher than this. If you're just talking about, they went 8-9 last year. The last couple of years, they've been pretty solid as a team with a record that really didn't suit how good the team was. Last year, you look at their record, but then you actually look at the teams they've played and they beat. Nobody they beat was any good. A bunch of the teams were trash. The Colts benefit from playing in the AFC South, okay? And the Colts benefit from playing a weak schedule. And the Colts benefit, I think, from having a pretty solid roster that a lot of people are able to overlook. But then at the same time, I feel like their ceiling is just not there because they just don't have a quarterback. And they are in that category of the Giants and the Browns. Colts fans can't realistically tell me that if you put the Colts in the NFC East and you put the Giants in the AFC South, their records would probably be reversed. The Colts have a solid roster, but they lost pieces on the offensive line. They didn't really address that linebacker position, right? They didn't really address those positions I was looking for them to address in the draft. I like their receivers. I think they're talented and deep, and they've got a lot of depth, and Pittman and Downs is an awesome combination, and Pierce and Mitchell can do their own thing. And you add Tyler Warren, you have Jonathan Taylor. But at the end of the day, this team is not getting any better than 8 wins as their max with Anthony Richardson or Daniel Jones as their quarterback. So I have no justification to really believe in this team as a high potential option because Anthony Richardson has a Tim Tebow-like release and a Tim Tebow-like completion percentage. He gets injured a lot and he's super inconsistent. It is boom or bust with this player. Daniel Jones is just very methodical, very mechanical, and does not create. He has no sense of creation, ad lib, or just fun in his game. It's very robotic. So for as talented of a coordinator and play caller that Steichen is, and as much as I respect Lou Anarumo, I just feel like they do not have the quarterback. They are the Giants. They are the Browns. They are in this category of teams that have a lot of talent, but they're missing a quarterback. They are one of the worst quarterback depth charts in football. So that's where that ceiling and floor, it's just hard for me to justify going beyond this ranking. Sure, you could rank them at 24 or 23. I just don't really see why I would. I mean, I'm not even really in love with the defense either. So at number 27, the Colts. At number 26, I'm going with the Carolina Panthers because I think there is a world where Carolina wins their division. Like, if Bryce Young can really put it together like he did at the back portion of the season last year, I feel like the Panthers could be something to mess with. You look at their foundation of an offense, they've got a strong offensive line that I would call a top 10 unit in football. They added one of their bigger weaknesses in the draft with a wide receiver named T-Mac out of Arizona, who I would argue was the best pure receiver, not accounting for Travis Hunter in the draft, right? His hands, his ability to win one-on-one jump balls and play the X position for this offense is going to come in handy for Bryce Young and Dave Canales. Dave Canales entering year 2 as the Panthers head coach. That should give him a lot of confidence and understanding of how to begin this season because last year's beginning was rough. And I love the running backs, Hubbard, Dowdle, right? And then guys beyond that as well. And then you still got Adam Thielen. You still got Jalen Coker. You've got Leggett, Mr. Raccoon. So I feel the Panthers offense is going to be one of the more slept on units because I think they're going to provide a lot of balance with the Panthers on offense. And then defensively, I think they very much improved this offseason. Like, they added multiple pass rushers in the draft. They added multiple defensive linemen in free agency, Tershawn Wharton and Bobby Brown, to help in a variety of ways, right? They still got guys like Clowney. Their secondary, you've got Horn. You add Morig to the team. You've got big Derek Brown returning. So I think the Panthers are not going to be an absolute trash defense this year. And I think their offense is going to continue to take steps forward thanks to McMillan being added to the bunch. So I think Carolina is a sneaky, competitive team. I'm not going to call them a potential playoff team, but I think they will be competitive. Next, the Las Vegas Raiders. The Raiders, they are stuck in a really tough division. Like, they are probably going to finish last in their division, but I'm not trying to account for them simply limiting them because of their division, right? Like, the Broncos, the Chargers, the Chiefs are probably going to be better teams than them. But that being said, this is a team that has Pete Carroll, Chip Kelly, right? I feel one of the most underrated defensive coordinators in football, one of the most underrated quarterbacks in football in Geno Smith. They added Ashton Genty. They have Brock Bowers. I don't mind their offensive line. I think it's very formidable. I think it's very solid. And they have Jacoby Myers, right? I think the offense with Chip Kelly, they added a receiver in the second round as well. A guy that Chip can use in a lot of different ways. I think they have enough playmakers. It's not incredible, but I think they have enough, along with, I think, what will be a pretty interesting running game for them to give some teams some fits. And Geno Smith is very accurate. And if they keep games close, they can win a lot of these games because of Geno Smith. Defensively, I really like their defensive line, led by Christian Wilkins, Max Crosby, and Malcolm Kuntz. You throw in Tyree Wilson development, but I don't love the back half of the defense, and that's where I think struggles will continue for them. Maybe they can pick up a linebacker or a corner in free agency this summer, but I just don't feel like the Raiders are going to be any better than the worst team in their division. At the same time, I think they're going to be one of those teams that's a pain in the butt to play because they're going to be very well coached. Their quarterback can steal you a game, and they're going to have a dynamic running game. So at number 25, I have the Raiders. At number 24, the Miami Dolphins. Miami keeps plunging down the list, and it really goes beyond the roster. As I've suggested many times, I have very little confidence in the leadership of this team or this organization, and I have very little confidence in the culture of this team. I also don't have a lot of trust in Tua to stay healthy. Jalen Ramsey might be traded before the year. Tyreek Hill, he'd probably be making another baby rather than practicing. And then you got Jalen Waddle, who, I don't know, like he'll pull his hamstring in the second quarter. So Jonnu Smith is a dog. The offensive line is terrible. Like, no good, awful, so bad. The defensive line is actually very underrated. Now that they've added Kenneth Grant, they have Zach Sealer, they've got Jalen Phillips, Bradley Chubb, Chop Robinson. That's a nice little variety up front. The linebackers are solid enough, but the secondary is atrocious. Like, I don't see them covering anybody if Jalen Ramsey leaves. So Miami, I think they're going to have their time, their games, probably early in the season, where, again, they kick off the season in style, they put up some points, they have some fun, they throw a couple bombs to Tyreek Hill, it's sunny in Miami, they take teams by surprise, they have some new motion plays and gimmicks, and then they eventually run out of steam, the line of scrimmage becomes too much to overcome, and they fall apart because Tua gets hurt or something, but regardless, Miami, I just don't think will be as good as previous seasons. I think they're in this group of teams where they've got some talent, they've got some aspects that you like, but really I don't see the ceiling this year for this team. Next up at number 23, Jacksonville. And Jacksonville is a tricky one to rank because when I look at their roster, I don't necessarily see a lot of superstar talent, and I don't see a lot of superstar areas or stacked areas of their team. Like, their O-line is not very good. Like, it's one of the 5 worst in the league on paper. Their D-line is okay, but I wish they had better defensive tackle play. Their linebackers are solid, right? I do think they improved their cornerback group with Jordan Lewis, and they also added a safety in the draft. But I think what really gets me going about Jacksonville is Liam Cohen mixed with Brian Thomas, Travis Hunter, and Trevor Lawrence. I think this team, if Trevor Lawrence is healthy and plays the way he can play, this team could be feisty. Like, this team, there is a world where they steal the division from Houston or they sneak into the wild card. Like, I think there is a world where that happens if we get the best from Trevor Lawrence and Liam Cohen improves the offensive scheme. He gets the ball to Brian Thomas and Travis Hunter, and the O-line improves thanks to the scheme. So I think there's a world, but at the same time, I don't have enough faith that they're going to be able to block consistently. I don't have enough faith in the defense consistently enough. So I kind of view them as a team with the potential to be pretty good, but at the same time, I'm not sure if I'm confident in the roster enough. So at number 23, I have Jacksonville. At number 22, the Atlanta Falcons. The Falcons feel like a decent number 2 in the NFC South. Like, I think they're a little bit above the Panthers, but not by much. Like, I do appreciate that they tried to address their edge position in the draft, but there's a chance that neither of those guys are super productive as rookies. Like, I wouldn't be that shocked. I also thought that what they did at safety, strengthening the depth there, was also a pretty good move. And then I think their defense as a whole just looks a little bit younger, fresher, and there's more potential for it to be decent this year than last year. I know that they lost like Grady Jarrett, but I'm not too concerned about their defensive line. And then I like their linebackers. I think they're very underrated. And then, you have Jesse Bates and AJ Terrell, so they hold down the secondary pretty effectively. They make up for a lot of deficiencies and holes back there. So I think their defense can be very solid. And then coupled by an offense that I just think has a very good offensive line, it allows you to run the ball, stay balanced. You've got enough weaponry between Darnell Mooney, Drake London, Bijan Robinson, and Kyle Pitts. You've got enough to work with there with a really good offensive line for Michael Penix to succeed, and specifically in a dome, put up some yardage, put up some points. So the Michael Penix question is a looming one. It's a big one. I'm not exactly sure how good he'll be. But from what I saw, I could see him being fine enough in a good scheme with a strong running game. He can make plays with his legs, with his big arm. I think Drake London could have a huge year. Bijan Robinson's absolute stud. So I could see how this team is winning 7 to 10 games in that range. So that's why I have them at number 22. At number 21, the Dallas Cowboys. The Cowboys and the Falcons are kind of similar to me. I think that the offensive line of Dallas is much worse than Atlanta's, but I have more confidence in what Dak will be than Penix. And I also feel like Atlanta has more weapons, but Dallas has the better defense. So it's kind of like pick your poison. Dallas is in the tougher division, but again, I'm not really layering that into this conversation. It's more about how good the teams are. If they played tomorrow, who do I think would actually win? I lean towards Dallas because I like the addition of Matt Eberflus, along with what they did on defense this offseason. I think at corner with Revel, Diggs, and Bland, that's one of the better units in the league. I like their safeties enough. Their linebackers have some young potential there. And defensive line-wise, Ezra Raku with Dante Fowler, with Micah Parsons, with Adigizua. That pass rush, if they get a lead, that's going to be a powerful pass rush to deal with. So I could see where Dallas could be a little bit better than people think. At the same time, I could see where their offense really lets them down. Their run game isn't quite successful enough. They don't quite have a bell cow running back. Their offensive line just isn't good enough to really protect Dak without great weaponry on the outside. Besides CeeDee Lamb, they don't really have anybody. I'm looking for them to maybe add Amari Cooper or something of that stature to maybe give them one more guy to rely on. But yeah, Dallas needs a couple more weapons on offense. Their O-line gives me some issues, but Booker was a solid pick to replace Zach Martin. I do really think the defense, though, could be better than last year by quite a few strides and quite a few rankings. So at number 21, Dallas. At number 20, the Seattle Seahawks. Seattle just feels like that team in the NFC West this year that's going to finish last. I don't really know why. I kind of feel like it's because of what they've done on offense, if I had to give you an answer. Like, I still have my problems with the offensive line, despite the Gray Zabel selection. I feel like Sam Darnold's going to have his ups and his downs, and I think Seahawks fans are going to realize that he's no better than Geno, and he's probably worse. I think their run game, like last year, because of the offensive line, will be very inconsistent, although Kubiak should improve the consistency. And the wide receivers, I just don't know if there's enough juice or explosion or big playability from this offense. I mean, if MVS is your guy that you're really looking for the big plays and the big spark, I think that's going to make you drive the length of the field often, which is going to lead to a lot of lower scoring games. And there's going to be a lot of pressure on Seattle's defense. That being said, you have Mike McDonald in year 2, running his defense in Seattle. That could be a top 10 unit. I really like a lot of areas of this team, I feel like, or this defense or this unit. I look at Murphy with Leonard Williams, with Dexter DeMarcus Lawrence, and I view a defensive line that has a lot of formation and lineup versatility. I view a defense that's going to be very solid against the run with Ernest Johnston, I can't say names right now, Ernest Jones in the middle. And then in the secondary, you've got Julian Love. They picked another safety in the draft with a lot of promise. And then Woolen and Witherspoon to hold it down at cornerback. So I look at Seattle and I could see the potential from the defense to really carry this team to quite a few close margin victories, but at the same time, I think their offense is going to be the liability, which holds them from being a real playoff threat. I think they're probably going to dip in their record this year, maybe taking off in 1 or 2 years to really be a successful team, but I just view them within the division, and I think that they're probably behind the other 3 teams, just in my mind, just in the way that I see it going. So that's why I can only put them as high as 20, because I just don't really see the ceiling with Sam Darnold leading this Seahawk team. At number 19, the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Steelers have a very good defense on paper, but we don't know who the quarterback is going to be. Mike Tomlin is trying to do magic once again and try to get a winning season out of this team once again. Now, they did do a lot to really juice up this team and the offense. DK Metcalf, right? That's a big-time option. Caleb Johnson in the draft will really help their running game for explosives, something that really Najee did not provide. I'm a little worried about the offensive line still. I think that's an overlooked aspect of the Steelers that I don't think gets enough negative press. And then DK, Pickens, Freiermuth, Warren, there's a lot to work with there. Calvin Austin, a lot of passing game potential, but who's throwing them the ball? Is it Mason Rudolph? That would move them down this list. Is it Aaron Rodgers? Maybe it moves them up 1 or 2 spots. But I look at the Steelers and I just don't see the potential because I think quarterback will be limited. Offense will be probably sputtering, but there is potential if Aaron Rodgers is Aaron Rodgers. Now, defensively, I do think they'll be top 10 with TJ Watt, Alex Highsmith, Patrick Queen, right? They've got studs. And then the secondary only improved with Darius Slay and Juan Thornhill and some extra depth there. Their defense added another stud in Harmon in the draft. So yeah, they're going to be the Steelers like they are every year. Probably a lot of grinded out football games, Mike Tomlin style football, but it's going to be probably Strugglesville on offense, probably inconsistency on offense, probably quarterback play that's frustrating. It's just going to continue on and on and on until they find that long-term solution. But we'll wait and see what happens with Aaron Rodgers. At number 18, the Arizona Cardinals. The Cardinals are an example of a team that a lot of their fans, right, the last time I made this video, they were frustrated by their ranking, but not necessarily what I said about the team. So the Cardinals are a team that I view as much better on paper than last year, but when I compare them to the rest of the NFL, it's actually hard for me to move them beyond what they were last year, if that makes sense. Like if you were just listing the teams last season based on record, the Cardinals were probably like the 16th, 17th, 18th best team or whatever, right? But I actually think they're better than last year. I actually think their potential is higher than last year. I never bought into them last year as winning their division. I never bought into them last year as being a playoff team. Like this year, I actually think that is possible. Okay, I don't think they're going to win their division. I honestly don't. I think they could make the playoffs though, but it really comes down to Kyler Murray and it comes down to the evolution of Marvin Harrison Jr. Does he become a special wide receiver? Because they need a stud on the outside to help out Kyler Murray. And we know the running game is going to be pretty fun to watch. We know the O-line will be better run blocking than pass blocking. We know Trey McBride and what he can do. I'm a little frustrated they didn't bring in another option, a secondary receiver for Kyler. Like Michael Wilson, Greg Dortch, nothing too special there. Defensively, though, is really where this team could be a lot better against the more talented NFL teams. Because it felt like every time they played like a good offense, they could just never really get a lot of stops and make a lot of plays. And they just got outpossessed and ran over. So this year, they do add a ton of pieces to the front seven. Whether it be Walter Nolan, whether it be Calais Campbell, Dalvin Tomlinson, Josh Sweat. They get pieces back from injury like their first round pick from a year ago. So there's going to be plenty more depth, plenty more options, and just variety for Jonathan Gannon to play with, some toys for him to really work with this year in a way that they have not had under his regime. Linebacker is still concerning, but Will Johnson should really help the cornerback position as long as he's healthy. We know what their safeties can bring and do. So I look at the Cardinals as a team that if they get the best out of Kyler and they get a solid defense, like I'm not thinking they're going to be great, but like a solid defense and the best of Kyler, yeah, this team could win like 10, 11, 12 games at their best, at their peak. It's just really hard for me to rank them any higher than 18 based on the teams and how I think of them based on potential and a variety of things at number 17, 16, 15. Okay, so that's why I have the Cardinals here. But that's not to say that they're not better than last year. That's not to say that they don't have more potential than last year. So I hope that's understood. At number 17, the Chicago Bears. Now, the Bears and the Cardinals are very similar in my mind. Like, I could see either team having a breakout season, and it's kind of up to you to make that choice. The Bears are in the tougher division, but not by a lot. I would say that it comes down to me, Ben Johnson versus Jonathan Gannon. That's really what it came down to. And I have a little bit more trust in Kyler than Caleb. Like, this is not a Caleb versus Kyler conversation. I think Kyler right now is actually better. Caleb was not very good last year. I think the weakness or the question about the Bears is Caleb. If Caleb is successful for the Bears, they should be a very good team. I mean, there's really no reason why they shouldn't be. I mean, you look at their offensive line now, you've got Joe Thuney, You've got Drew Dahlman. You've got Jonah Jackson. You've got Braxton Jones, and you've got Darnell Wright. That's a top 10 offensive line. Like, that should protect Caleb better than the Cardinals can protect Kyler. And you've got DJ Moore, who's a stud, right? You've got Luther Burden now. You've got Colston Loveland now. You've got Roma Dunze. I mean, Zacchaeus is in the mix. So this should be more of a pass-happy pass approach within this team because they didn't really address running back. And DeAndre Swift's not a guy that you would really want carrying the ball 20 times. They could go for a spread thing with Caleb Williams here and really let him rock and work with a lot of short, quick passing game and allow him to be a backyard specialist out there. But the offense could be exciting. It could be fun. It could be very different. I'm going to enjoy the vibe of this team regardless. Really, the pressure's on Caleb to make this happen. Defensively, I think they're solid. I don't think they're special, but they're solid enough, right? They did help their defensive front this offseason, I felt like. They're pretty much the same in the back end, which they were already very good. So there's really no concern there in Chicago. So I look at this roster, and it's definitely a playoff caliber roster. It's going to come down to how quickly can this new coaching staff make an impact, Dennis Allen, Ben Johnson, and can Caleb Williams take his game to the next level? So at number 17, I have the Chicago Bears just ahead of the Cardinals. This one was kind of a swap scenario. Next up, I've got the New England Patriots at number 16. My Patriots at 16 because honestly, guys, like, you're going to call me crazy, but I think the Patriots could be a AFC divisional round team. Like, when you really think about it, I think their coaching is outstanding on paper. Like, we know what Josh McDaniels can do as an offensive coordinator, and we know how good Mike Vrabel is at taking underdog teams to beyond their ability, okay? And I just see New England being able to play very good, capable defense, having an electric playmaking quarterback, and having a good amount of balance on offense. So talking about both sides of the ball, I think a lot of fans that have recently commented on my content that aren't typical BLVers are kind of confused why the Patriots are like being put in this conversation for me. But if you really sit there and look at their depth chart and look at their team and how they can match up with a lot of the best teams in the AFC, there's actually reasoning behind why the Patriots could be pretty darn good this year. First of all, Drake May is really talented. Like, I don't think people will realize how good this guy is until they see him play with more talent around him. Because last year, it was so pathetic from the Patriots' perspective in terms of pass blocking, in terms of ability to separate and make plays at wide receiver. Even his interceptions, some of them that he threw were just atrocious from a receiver perspective. Drop passes into the hands of opposing corners, right? Their O-line is better at multiple positions. First of all, tackle Will Campbell, Morgan Moses. Mike Onwenu is a good player, right? Like, their O-line is going to be a lot better, plus because they have better coaching in Doug Marrone, and they also have better coaching from a scheme perspective in Josh McDaniels, who's always done well with offensive lines. I think Henderson from Ohio State is going to give them an electricity in the backfield and an awesome 1-2 with Ramondre Stevenson, and even a 3 with Antonio Gibson. Then you've got Hunter Henry at tight end. You add Stephon Diggs to give a reliable, chain-moving, quick separating receiver. Demario Douglas is a nice, quick slot option to separate. And then Kyle Williams has a lot of potential as well. So I think they improve their weaponry. I think they improve their offensive line. I think just naturally, Drake May with a better scheme, a better coordinator, a better play caller, and entering year 2 maturity as a quarterback is going to go from talented to this guy is a good quarterback. Like, I wouldn't be shocked if people were talking about Drake May by the end of the year as a top 10 quarterback in the NFL. I actually would predict that to be the case. That's why I'm confident in the Patriots turning this thing around. And then defensively, they have a lot of talent at all levels. I mean, Milton Williams, Harold Landry, Christian Barmore, Keon White up front. And then you look at Robert Spillane behind them. You look at Kyle Duggar, Jabril Peppers, one of the best corner depth charts in football with Gonzalez, Davis, Marcus Jones, Alex Austin. This is a very good defense that can play man aggressive coverage. They can blitz you. They can stop the run with their big bodies. And they can play physical Patriot football on both sides of the ball. I'm very much looking forward to the Patriots. I think they're going to take the league by storm. I think they're going to be very surprising. I think the Cardinals or the Bears could be that version in the NFC that the Patriots will be in the AFC. I think they will be flirting with the playoff spot by the end of the season. At number 15, the Green Bay Packers. The Packers just feel very confidently like a solid team. Like, that is beyond what the Patriots are. The Patriots are a projection. They are a potential. The Packers are, we've been here, we've done that, we've established what we are, but what is our ceiling? And I kind of look at the Packers compared to some of the teams in the NFC, and I don't love their ceiling as much as I love other teams in the NFC, right? I think Jordan Love is just, I feel okay about him, but I don't feel great about him. I like the offensive line quite a bit, and I love Matt LaFleur's play calling, and I like their running game, but I do feel like still their receiving options are like, if you just swap Matthew Golden for Christian Watson, I don't really think that there's, a lot that they improved there. So I think the offense is going to be good because it's schematically sound and they are balanced and they're explosive. But I don't think it's one of those offenses that against elite defenses and elite teams that truly dominates because some of their flaws of not having true alpha studs do shine. And then defensively, I just think they're not great. Like, I think that their run defense last year was very much improved, but their passing consistency defensively was very, lacking. Like, they would allow long drives or, third down conversions or just a lack of a pass rush or, Jair is a big looming question as well. Will he remain on the roster or not? I do think they have youthful talent at all three levels, and I do think they have potential to improve at all three levels. But at the same time, I just don't see where they're getting their stops and who they're allowing them to get those stops, right? Where are the absolute studs? Kenny Clark, I don't think is quite the same player. Rashawn Gary is good, but I feel like I'm underwhelmed by him. And the secondary is just McKinney is really good player, playmaker, but he's a safety, So at number 15, I just feel like the Packers are just, they're there. They're on the fringe of the playoff conversation, but I also kind of feel like they're just one of those teams that are just not quite going to be there at the end of the day. I just think there's more teams that give me more juice, more excitement, more gas, and maybe I'm a little bored of the Packers right now. It's nothing really against them, but that's just the way I see it. At number 14, the Denver Broncos are kind of a similar version of the Packers, where it's I really respect their coaching. I think Sean Payton is excellent. Vance Joseph is also very underrated. I thought he was one of the best coordinators in football last year, given what we thought the defense would be. And I kind of look at the Broncos and like the Packers, I'm like, I know they're going to be good. I just wonder if they're going to be good enough. Is Bo Nix this year really going to truly take a leap? Did they do enough around him to really give him enough juice to just take over? I think the O-line is pretty good, but will it be as good as last year? There are some concerns that just with a little bit more wear and tear, they might just not be as fortunate. And then RJ Harvey, I think, will improve their electricity to the backfield. Wide receiver-wise, I don't really think they've done enough there. I'm kind of exhausted at this point. I thought they would add somebody else to complement Cortland Sutton, and they tried in the draft, but I'm just not sold by what they've done. Evan Ingram, okay, we'll see what he is as the Joker for Sean Payton. But I just think this offense is a lot of smoke and mirrors. I don't really see it as being a sustainable team or offense in big moments against big-time teams. I just felt like once they got to the playoffs last year, they could put together and string together a drive or two, but nothing beyond that. So I kind of struggled to see the potential of their offense. And then defensively, I love Zach Allen, Nick Bonito, Pat Surtain. I'm actually kind of worried that the investments they made with Hufanga and Greenlaw after the Greenlaw news, I'm kind of worried that those are not going to pan out because I kind of am worried that they're not going to stay on the field. I've seen them in San Francisco get hurt so much. The potential and the thought is there, but at the same time, they're kind of accounting for those guys to be big time because they're accounting for those guys to solve their issues from last year. I don't know if they're going to be able to if they're not on the field, right? But they do have a very good interior defensive line. They do have a pretty good edge rush. They do have really capable cornerbacks. It's just, Last year, I mean, they were an excellent defense, and that's as good as they got. Like, they got to like 10 wins and barely made the playoffs or whatever. So, and they didn't beat the Bengals, at the end of the year when they definitely should have or could have. So, the Broncos, I think they're kind of like at that same spot. Their roster's a little bit better. Their promise is a little bit greater, but I feel like teams kind of know what they are now. They're going to be able to study their offense, understand what they're bringing to the table. It's not going to be a shock or a wow anymore. And that's going to also kind of, I think, level the playing field for the Broncos this season, which I kind of have them on that fringe of the playoffs, just like the Packers. At number 13, the Washington Commanders. I am starting to kind of believe in the regression for the Commanders, because when I look at their team and I look at last year and I look at the narrative and the story, I've just seen so many teams like this that just don't get back to where they were. They kind of give me the Texans vibes from last year, where everyone is going to buy into, they went to the NFC Championship. They were this young Cinderella team, and yet they're just going to kind of disappoint on expectation despite some improvement across the roster. And honestly, the Commanders don't have nearly the same defense that the Texans do. I do think the Commanders have a much more insulated offense, talking about the offensive line and the play calling situation, than the Texans did. But I think their defense is going to severely disappoint them. Their pass rush is not good. Their run defense last year was not good. Their corner position, I think, is improved on paper. But will that truly unlock Dan Quinn's ability to play man coverage if Marshawn Lattimore's not the same guy? You're accounting a lot on a rookie corner at that point. Safeties are not very good, in my opinion. Like, I just don't see the defense being any better than a bottom 10 unit. And offensively, I just think that defenses will adjust to Jaden a little bit better. I think they'll adjust to Cliff a little bit better. I'm not quite buying in Deebo Samuel being this mega superstar piece. Like, I think they've got the offense to give a lot of teams problems. And I think their coaching staff deserves a lot of credit and a lot of respect. And I think that Jaden Daniels deserves a lot of credit, a lot of respect, along with Terry McLaurin. But that's why I have them 13, but I don't quite buy them in being this superstar contending roster in 2025. I think it's more likely they miss the playoffs than they get back to the NFC Championship. So at number 13, I have the Commanders. At number 12, the San Francisco 49ers. I really enjoyed the 49ers draft. I thought they did a lot to set themselves up with a very easy schedule to be back in the playoffs in 2025. First of all, San Francisco, Washington, they're sort of similar in a way, like on paper. I kind of view them as having really good offenses, but sort of suspect defenses. But what I believe in with San Francisco is I believe in the studs that they have, and I believe in Robert Saleh. I also thought they did a good job of insulating the areas of weakness in the draft, like Michael Williams with their first pick, who should provide a nice complementary option for Nick Bosa. They added multiple defensive tackles. And I do think the biggest area where their defense will improve is they should be able to stop the run this year, which has been a big weakness for them the last 2 years. On top of Nick Bosa, right, you've got Fred Warner, who's pretty awesome at his job too. And I think guys like Lenore and Green at corner are very underrated. So I look at the Niners defense and I think that the talent on paper is not as promising or as good or successful as it's been in the past. It's not as stardom inspiring, right? But Saleh's coaching and his fundamentals, coupled with the youthful energy and the depth, I think will complement a very good offense, which you have Brock Purdy, Christian McCaffrey, George Kittle, Brandon Ayuk, Ricky Pearsall, Demarcus Robinson, Jawan Jennings. I mean, there's a ton of options to go with the ball. The offensive line is basically the same, and Kyle Shanahan is just a wizard, especially with an extended offseason. We've seen this team constantly bounce back from their downfalls, and I think this team will bounce back in 2025. A lot of it just comes down to luck, if they can stay healthy, if McCaffrey can stay healthy, if Purdy can stay healthy, if Ayuk can stay healthy. So a lot of it will come down to health with the Niners, as it always does. But to me, I think the path is there. Everything is there. The vibes are there. So the Niners, I think will be more offensive than defensive, but I think their defense with that youthful insurgence, and I think that Saleh is going to help them out. So at number 12, the 49ers. At number 11, the Los Angeles Chargers. Time to bolt up. I nearly put the Chargers at 8, which goes to show kind of how close this list is. But at the end of the day, I just couldn't quite trust two areas. The Chargers, I still have questions about the weaponry on offense, and I have questions about the defensive line. I think that they don't have a lot of depth on the defensive line, especially in the interior. I think it's a little suspect. I like guys like Tart but I mean, they're nothing special, okay? And if Khalil Mack's not getting to the quarterback, I mean, I kind of wonder who is. I love their linebackers, and I love their safeties. I think they have one of the best combination of safeties in football. I think their corners are underrated, and they actually have quite a bit of depth at that position. I'm worried about the edge rush. I'm worried about the pass rush, and I'm worried about the weaponry. Like, other than Ladd McConkey, okay, they did draft Trey Harris. We'll see how that goes. He could be good. He could be the X receiver on the outside that they truly need. Quentin Johnston's still there, whatever, okay. They've got multiple kind of journeyman tight ends like Tyler Conklin and Will Dissly. Hampton could really be something for this offense. But again, J.K. Dobbins was pretty good when he played last year. I mean, how much better are they going to really be at running back with Najee and Hampton? They will be able to run the ball. And kind of the area where I really like them now is the offensive line. Like, I think the combination between the smart defensive scheme, Justin Herbert, and that offensive line, that sets you above over half the league already. So their potential exists within the lines of their weakness. Who steps up in their front seven? Who steps up in their pass rush, their run defense? Who is that complementary option to Ladd McConkey in the passing game? Who's that other guy that Justin Herbert can count on to get open? So 11, 12, 13 was kind of their floor. Well, I almost nearly put them at 8 because I can see a world where Herbert is dealing and their O-line is dominant and their defense is sound and savvy, and they could steal a lot of victories that way. So at number 11, I have the Chargers. Entering the top 10, the Cincinnati Bengals, who up until now, I've been very conservative on my Cincinnati ranking because I simply was trying to hold back and hold down and stuff away into a closet my love for the Cincinnati Bengals because I just think their offense is so potent. But at the same time, when I'm really thinking about it, like, sure, could the Bengals be a 9-8 team again where their defense stinks and their offense is awesome and they're really the 16th best team? Sure. But I'm kind of playing on the margins where I'm like, this team could also go to the Super Bowl. Like, if they can just get a little bit better on defense, there is no quarterback that, like Patrick Mahomes, would rather not face in the playoffs than Joe Burrow. There is no offense that teams fear in the AFC more than the Bengals. So I just look at them and I'm like, if things go their way, if they just hit on Shamar Stewart, or if TJ Slayton really helped the run defense that much, or their corners are a little healthy, or their new defensive scheme really unlocks a couple of these players, like if they can get to like the 18th best defense in the league, they're going to be a team that could be in the Super Bowl. So that's where I'm trying to walk this line with Cincinnati. Now, their O-line, you still kind of worry about the interior, but that's been a problem for them, and it's never really been something that's crippled them with Joe Burrow. He just understands how to get rid of the ball, and he will take a hit, and he will take the occasional sack. And it doesn't seem to bug them because they have so many explosive plays and so many explosive options that they overcome it constantly, okay? Chase Brown, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Yossi Voss, Mike Gesicki. It's just a really hard offense to stop. And then defensively, I do think that with Shamar Stewart now, TJ Slayton now, they've improved their defensive line. I think that Turner and Cam Taylor-Britt, I mean, Dax Hill, we'll see what he can be if he plays nickel this year. Like, I could see where the improvement could be had on the corner and the secondary as well. And they have plenty of depth at linebacker, so I'm not too concerned there. Like, Cincinnati, there's definitely a world where this team's in the AFC Championship. So that's why I had to walk that line at number 10. At number 9, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I don't love that they keep having to switch their offensive coordinator, but then I get back to the depth chart, and I look at the depth chart, and I'm just like, there's just not that many teams that are more talented than Tampa Bay, and there's just not a lot of teams that have their level of, like, they're elite against the run, and they're also elite throwing the ball and running the ball offensively. Like, their offense last year was top 5 in football, and basically no one really stopped them. I mean, they had maybe 1 or 2 games where they did not play that well, but Baker was his best version last season. Their offensive line is underrated. I mean, they have the best tackle in the NFL, probably, in Tristan Wirfs. And Bucky Irving, Rashad White at running back. They've got receivers galore. Like, remember, they lost last year in the playoffs basically due to a weird fumble play against the Commanders. That was without Chris Godwin, right? They didn't have Chris Godwin. Now they do. They have Mike Evans. They have Emeka Egbuka now as well. And they've got a plethora of targets. I mean, McMillan, they've got so many ways to beat you. You can't play man coverage against this team. Like, good luck. Baker's just going to pick you apart. And then defensively, they added Hassan Reddick to their pass rush, which should help situationally speaking. I like Yaya Diaby. I love Vita Vea and Kalijah Kancey inside. Levante David's still balling, and I think that their safety position, Antoine Winfield is a stud. I mean, I think they improved their secondary because they added multiple picks in the draft to help that insulation and that secondary depth, which they've been lacking. They added a true nickel corner in Parrish in the draft as well. So I could see where Tampa, even despite the Liam Cohen loss, they still are able to score and move the ball. And then defensively, they could be improved, especially in pass defense with their added pass rush and their added secondary depth. So at number 9, I've got Tampa Bay. They also feel like kind of a lock to win their division. At number 8, the Minnesota Vikings. I know that the Vikings have the most uncertain quarterback by a wide margin within the top 16 teams, but this team is so stacked, it's just hard to ignore how good they could be. I mean, last year they won 14 games with a quarterback that no one really thought could win 14 games in an NFL season. Like, no one thought Sam Darnold could win 14 games. You might have thought he was better than people thought, like I did. I kind of thought he was more talented than people gave him credit for, but even then I didn't project the Vikings to be a very good team because I still doubted Sam Darnold. So I don't really feel the reason to doubt J.J. McCarthy because the coaching is excellent. I mean, Kevin O'Connell's a great play caller. Brian Flores is an excellent defensive coordinator. I mean, that's one of the 3 best combinations in football, in my opinion. And the O-line is so much better this year. I mean, they added Donovan Jackson in the draft. You get Christian Darrisaw back at left tackle, which was really the kryptonite for that team last year. It just completely unraveled the entire protection plan. Then you have a new center in Ryan Kelly, a new guard in Will Fries in free agency. This is a top 5-6 offensive line. You had Jordan Mason to take pressure off Aaron Jones. You've got great receivers with Justin Jefferson, TJ Hawkinson, Jordan Addison. And then defensively, they're better on the defensive line. Javon Hargrave, Jonathan Allen. Their corner position is a little iffy, but I feel like Flores with his scheme, with that pass rush up front, Van Ginkel, Dallas Turner a year or 2, Jonathan Grenard, good linebackers. I mean, there's just not a lot to dislike on this team. Like, if JJ is just solid, this is a good playoff team. They might not win 14, 13 games, but 10, 11 feels fair. And their potential due to how balanced they could become, it's a scary thought for a lot of teams. At number 7, I have the Houston Texans at number 7. I'm going with potential here because the Texans, their offensive line is putrid, but at the same time, I mean, they did try their best to improve it. First with the scheme, right? They got rid of their old offensive coordinator in Slowick, who was too simple with his protections and too predictable with his play calls. And they added Nick Caley, who is a Patriot and Ram guy who will have better protection plans. They added a plethora of talent from Trent Brown to Cam Robinson to Lincoln Tomlinson to Ingram from the Vikings to Ursery, I think could start right away. I think they have enough depth and enough options to make 5 guys on the O-line work. And even if Tank Dell is out for the entire season, they've got a ton of receiver talent. Nico Collins and Christian Kirk, on top of Jalen Noel and Higgins. I mean, that's one of the best wide receiver depth charts in the league. And then you still have Hutchinson, you have Berrios, you have Justin Watson, you have Dalton Schultz, you have Joe Mixon. I mean, they added a pass catching back in the draft. This team to me, like the Texans, you could make a strong argument that if you took the offensive line out of the equation for roster talent, that the Texans were the most talented team in the NFL. You could make that argument. If you took the offensive line out of the equation, you're talking about receivers, tight end, running back, quarterback, defense. They could be the most talented team in the league. I think they will improve from an offensive play calling standpoint, offensive scheme standpoint. I think they'll have a terrifyingly good defense. They've only gotten better on that side of the ball. They're fast, they're physical, they're fearless. D'Amico's a great defensive coach. And CJ should have a huge bounce back season. So at number 7, I have the Texans. At number 6, the Detroit Lions. The Lions are very talented and they've got a lot of players in their prime. I'm concerned about the coaching, as I've brought up many, many times, and I'm not going to reiterate. But it's hard to deny that the Lions have not built a very strong, capable culture that will keep them consistent. They have Jared Goff, who's playing the best football of his career. They have a plethora of playmakers, a demon in Jamison Williams, Jahmyr Gibbs, who's electric, right? David Montgomery. They have Sam Laporta, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Tim Patrick. They added a Tesla to their wide receiver room as well. The offensive line, it's still going to punish you. It's still going to run you over. And even if Ben Johnson's play calling is no longer there, they have so much talent, they should be able to move the ball and score points no matter what because of the balance they offer. Defensively, they have a lot more talent due to the resurgence of health. Aiden Hutchinson is a game changer for them when he is on the field. They have very good linebackers, very good safeties. Their cornerback group is very deep. I don't think it's like superb at the top, but DJ Reed should maintain that consistency. I think Detroit is probably not going to be as good as last year, but they feel very safe and stable to be a team that's in the mix. So that's why I have them at number 6, entering the top 5. At number 5, the LA Rams. I think the Rams have a good mixture of safety, comfort for me, comfortability, and then on top of that, they have potential. I think offensively, they could be scary. I mean, Puka Nacua, if he's healthy, with Devontae Adams, that's a scary thought, with what they could do in all their different formations and Sean McVay calling plays. Devontae Adams out wide, Puka Nacua in the slot. It's going to be hard to double both those guys. Then you've got a young tight end out of Oregon complementing those guys as well. Other names like Tutu Atwell to stretch the field. A capable, strong running game that has a lot of versatility. An O-line that I think is very underrated. And Matthew Stafford throwing the pill still at a high level. So they can beat anybody because when Stafford plays his best, he can overcome any deficiency they have, and he can just throw the ball and score points with the best of them, and he can just be surgical with the best of them. And then defensively, they have an electric front 7, a really good pass rush. I'm a little concerned about their corner play, especially nickel and linebacker is a little concerning, but I actually think Witherspoon and Darius Williams is okay at perimeter corner. I think their safeties are young and growing. And I think their front 7 is so good their front 4 is so good that I just don't think that they're going to really be exposed too often because I think they'll be able to get pressure very consistently. And I was really impressed by Shula last year. So at number 5, the Rams they have that potential from the defensive side. The offense has that extra bit of juice now that they have Devontae Adams. And this could allow them to be an NFC championship caliber team. At number 4, the Kansas City Chiefs. There's no denying the Chiefs will still be relevant this season. That's not exactly what I was saying when I was saying the Chiefs would be way worse, guys. What I was saying is I don't think they'll win 15 games, and I don't think they'll make the Super Bowl. But if I'm picking teams to win the AFC West, I'm picking the Chiefs. If I'm picking a team to get to the AFC divisional round, they're at the top of the list, right? I think they could miss the AFC Championship for the first time ever under Patrick Mahomes. That's a possibility. But you look at this team and you're like, okay, the offensive line, there's reasoning to say it could get better. There's reasoning to say it could get worse, right? Like, Joe Tooney's gone, so that sucks. But they did bring in Simmons, and they did bring in, it's more, right, from the 49ers. The tackle position could be stronger, while the guard position could be weaker. We'll see how that goes. Running back, I think, could be stronger and more electric and explosive as well. With the combination of Isaiah Pacheco, you still can lean back on Kareem Hunt, and you have Elijah Mitchell, and they also, I think, drafted somebody. Wide receiver-wise, they should be, like, good to go right away. Like, remember last year they were kind of adding guys down the stretch? Like, Hollywood didn't come back till late. Well, now they'll have Rashee Rice back, Worthy, like, year 2, ready to rock, and then Hollywood Brown ready to go, healthy, and Kelsey is kind of an afterthought, which is a scary thought. So their offense could actually be the most explosive it's been since Tyreek Hill left, which is pretty crazy for the Chiefs. Now, defensively, I think they're kind of due for a decline just because, like, Chris Jones is getting a little old, and the D-line is not, like, fierce, in my opinion. It's okay. It's solid. It's nothing special. I think they tried to improve the depth in the draft, which was a fair move. Linebackers are good. I love Chanel. I think he's super underrated. Corners, I mean, McDuffie is an absolute baller. The other guys kind of play around him and play to their strengths. And then safety should be a little worse, but it's nothing too worrisome. I just, Reed, Spags, their window, it's just going to be really hard because they're coming off a Super Bowl loss. Super Bowl hangover potential exists. Injuries, wear and tear, age. There's reasons for the Chiefs to kind of decline a little bit, but there's also reasons for them to actually be more fun to watch, more explosive, more interesting from a neutral perspective. So at number 4, I have the Chiefs. At number 3, the Baltimore Ravens. The Ravens and these top 3 teams, I think, were separated from the bunch. I think the Chiefs were a clear 4 in my mind. And number 3, these are the teams I think can win the Super Bowl. Like, if I'm picking a team to win the Super Bowl, I think it's going to be one of these 3 teams. Baltimore is one of those teams. Lamar Jackson, obviously, is an absolute superstar. Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson is something I never thought I would see outside of Madden, and it lived up to the hype last year. Zay Flowers is incredible. I mean, his quickness and his lateral movement skills and his explosiveness is just very rare. Rashad Bateman is actually really underrated right now. DeAndre Hopkins adds a nice complementary piece that they didn't have as like a third receiver, and they still have Mark Andrews and Isaiah Likely. They need to play Isaiah Likely a little bit more. Also, Keaton Mitchell will be healthier to start the year, which I think will add a nice complementary running back for Derrick Henry. Defensively, I think they're just going to kick off where they kind of ended last year, which was they were like at the top of the league by the end of last year in classic Baltimore fashion on defense. They're always good on defense somehow. Their lapses are only lasting so long. But at the beginning of last year, it was rough on defense. They couldn't really stop people. They couldn't really slow down people. But Zach Orr kind of figured it out. And Mike Green, that is going to add some pass rush juice and some potential, which they didn't have last year, right? Complementing Owe and Van Noy on the edge. And then you have a first-round safety in Starks from Georgia. Those are pieces they didn't have. That potential for the secondary and the pass rush, that's what could enable them to win the Super Bowl. Like, those are 2 missing pieces. I mean, they pretty much just kind of added to the team last year, which was already like an 8-9 Pro Bowl type of team, and they basically replaced like Brandon Stevens with Chidobe Awuzie. There was not a lot that they really had to do here to replace. So the Ravens on paper might be better than last year. I could have put them at 2, but the team that beat them in the playoffs I have at number 2, and that's the Buffalo Bills, because Buffalo got a lot better too. They just recently signed Elijah Moore. Elijah Moore is an interesting asset for them to give them another kind of like Khalil Shakir type, quick underneath wide receiver. I kind of intrigued to see how they'll use both those guys. But then you still have Coleman, expecting him to take a jump into year 2, right? Expecting Dalton Kincaid to maybe take another step. You've got James Cook. You added Josh Palmer, which I think is interesting because I've always been a Josh Palmer fan. The offensive line is probably still severely underrated. And Josh Allen is the best player in the league, in my opinion. Defensively, I think they've gotten a lot stronger and deeper, specifically on the defensive line, where they've added about 4 or 5 names. Multiple players in the draft, Landon Jackson and TJ Sanders in the 2nd and the 3rd round. And then they added Mike Hoyt, Larry Ogunjobi. They swapped Von Miller for Joey Bosa. And who knows, Von Miller could return. I wouldn't be shocked. Matt Milano there from the jump is a big addition as well. And then the secondary, Maxwell Hairston will do wonders along with Tre'Davious White also. So I think Buffalo, if it's ever been their year in the AFC, I mean, it could be this year. So yeah, last year they got Josh as MVP. Now they're looking for his ring. It could be this season. I just think they're the strongest and deepest they've been in quite a while. And then at number 1, the Philadelphia Eagles. I'll keep the champs on top. I like what they did in the draft. Makuba at safety, I think, adds a starter at that position potentially right away. He is just a perfect Fangio assassin back there. Just great range and no regard for his body. And then also on top of that, you get the best linebacker in the draft, Jahad Campbell, to complement Zach Bond. You still got Jalen Carter, right? Nolan Smith should take a big jump this year. And then you have Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean, who are also going to develop into year 2. So the defense is going to be the best or one of the best, led by Vic Fangio. And offensively, best O-line in the league, Saquon Barkley, partying with Timothy Chalamet, A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert. It's hard to stop. Jahan Dotson might even be a little bit more involved this year. The concern for the Eagles is Super Bowl pressure, Super Bowl target, a little bit of vanilla offense, right? Can people slow them down, stop them because they're too predictable, especially post Kellen Moore? Does Saquon just not quite have the same sort of electricity as he did last year? That's always a hit and miss thing. And defensively, they could slightly decline because they did lose some pieces like Milton Williams, Darius Slay, etc. But Philadelphia still on paper is the most talented team. They are the champs for a reason. They were so dominant in the playoffs that it's hard for me not to rank them number 1. I'd feel like a fool. So those are my rankings. All 32 teams post NFL draft. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, Gronk, spike the like button. Don't be a jabroni and subscribe. Peace.